Hello, everyone. My name is Mac McKenzie. I'm with the Nexus Business Alliance. Today, I'd like to talk to you about equity investing. Equity investing is where someone buys a portion of your company with an equity investment. The proportion that they buy isn't necessarily based on the amount of money they give you. Let me explain. Suppose a business was worth $10 million on the day that it opened. It could have had six or $700,000 of money put into it to be worth that 10,000. If it were appraised, it would be appraised at what its trading value is, or goodwill as some people refer to it, or blue sky, plus the actual cost of getting it started. Now, in that $10 million, there might be an equity investor who put in $4 million towards the value of the company. Technically, because it's the value of the company based on the percentage of money that was put in, he now owns 40% of the company. He gets paid dividends along the way. Those dividends are based on what the senior owner, operator, manager, whoever you are and what you call yourself, the dividends are based on a percentage of what you pay in dividends. If you were going to pay a $500,000 in dividends and the equity investor held 40%, then he would get $200,000. That would be 40% of the $500,000 that was paid in dividends. He's only paid a percentage of what the rest of the shareholders are paid. He's always paid. He can waive it. He can leave his money in and perhaps acquire more investment in the company with your permission. But technically, his original equity investment gives him a percentage of the company. Now, along the way, the company is successful. It comes to the end of a term. Most equity investors want bought out at the end of a certain time. So let's say it's 10 years. And let's suppose the company was started with $10 million of total value. That's the 40% that the equity investor put in, and the 60% value that's determined by the worth of the company and what you put in. So year one, it opens its doors, it's worth $10 million, and it's a 10-year equity investment. Let's suppose it's 10 years down the road and it was a 10-year equity investment that the client accepted from the equity investor. Well, today the business is appraised, and the appraisal comes in at the business is worth $100 million. That means 40% of the value of that business goes to the equity investor, or $40 million. One of the big problems is people who have equity investors and have successful businesses forget that they have to come up with that money to buy out that equity investor. Most would like to get rid of the partner, but $40 million in the scenario that I just explained is a lot of money. So you have to plan early for removing the equity investor. The other thing that you can do with an equity investor is you can buy them out with someone else's money. Effectively, you sell the equity investor shares to a new equity investor. You don't gain anything. Sometimes it can cost you money. Along the way, some equity investors will want to be bought out before the end of the term. They may not be making the return they would like to see, or they may have other things like that they would like to put their money in. That's your option. It's not something that they have to accept, but you can approach an equity investor anywhere along the way and ask if you can buy out their equity investment. If the company's not doing well, sometimes you can buy out the equity investor for less than face value. You can actually get a discount and buy back the shares for less than they cost the equity investor originally. But that's entirely up to the equity investor accepting something like that. Along the way with equity investing, also, the equity investor may want to put more money in. That's totally your option. You don't have to accept any more money, and you do what you please that way. But the main thing to remember is whatever the value of the business is, and the value of the equity portion of the equity investor's original investment is what you have to pay him at the end upon an appraisal or an evaluation by approved evaluators at the end of the equity term. Could cost you a lot of money, or the equity investor might want to stay in if he's receiving a good return, may even want to put more in, but that's entirely up to you and the equity investor. Just remember, the equity investor is your friend only because he had the money. Some equity investors are very difficult to deal with, so make very certain if you're dealing with an equity investor, they're checked out very well by yourself before you accept their money. Thank you, and I hope this has helped.